The 2000s Zen Aesthetic. It's a rainy Saturday morning, sometime in 2002, and that notoriously trendy person in your life, maybe an older sibling, an aunt, your mum, or a roommate, has just dragged you to TK Maxx because today is the day the house becomes calming. They park their silver Peugeot 206 and you spend the next hour watching them fill a basket with scented candles, bamboo placements, and a wooden beaded door curtain that will inevitably whack you in the face every time you're on your way to make a cup of tea. Somebody's purchased an orchid. Nobody in the household knows how to take care of them. And by the end of the afternoon, the living room has transformed into a strange fusion of suburban semi-detached house and luxury Balinese resort. Dido is playing softly through the kitchen radio and everything feels strangely peaceful. Ringing any bells? Well, that's exactly what we're talking about today. And if you're new here, hi, I'm Jacqueline, I'm an interior designer with a background in interior architecture, and here we talk about interior design, home decor, if you hadn't already guessed, art and even architecture, so let's jump in. It's in the name already, but if you walked into enough homes, spas, fitness studios, hotel lobbies, health food stores, or nearly any furniture shops throughout the late 90s and early 2000s, you would have immediately recognized this aesthetic. But for the sake of summarizing this style and, I guess, movement, it was a time where wellness-driven lifestyle and design emerged. It reflected a growing Western fascination with Eastern philosophies, particularly Japanese Zen visual style and Indian wellness practices like yoga and meditation, which became heavily popularized through celebrity culture. And when I was researching this, it was actually born as a response to the stressful dawn of the digital age and the sensory overload of the Y2K futurism at the time. And I thought that was really interesting, but it also made a lot of sense. People were obviously craving anything naturalistic and raw at the time because crap like this was everywhere in your face. I mean, who remembers this dog thing? It was all a bit too much. So people naturally drifted to this all-encompassing movement, in terms of style, but also culturally. And I'm even thinking about myself in all of this. I grew up in the 90s, and I think my parents almost designed our house in this kind of way. Not purposely, I just think that it was one of the biggest trends of the time, and that was what was available in home stores as well. It's Christy Turlington doing yoga, it's Enigma playing in the background of every home decor shop, it's Lucky Bamboo in every restaurant, it's a Buddha statue sitting a meter away from a chunky silver plasma TV, it's Yankee Candle water garden, it's oolong tea being added to every coffee shop menu, it's your mum buying meditation CDs, it's Gwyneth emerging ominously on the horizon, which is like nothing new. But obviously, this is from a cultural perspective. When we're thinking about how it actually translated into interior design, it was lots of warm, neutral beige walls, which whilst we may think that it could be deemed as boring now, at the time it was very much a harsh contrast to the global village coffeehouse look a la Monica's apartment or literally any cinema at the time. And I guess before minimalism went mainstream, the aesthetic was also one of the more minimalistic ones at the time. These 2000s Zen-inspired interiors, retail environments, and restaurants were defined by low-profile rectilinear furniture, such as platform beds and boxy dark wood coffee tables, often contrasted against a muted colour palette of sage green, chocolate brown, warm light beige, and deep terracotta. Surfaces were characterized by a mix of highly polished, sleek materials like dark, stained wenge, bamboo or cherry flooring alongside natural, tactile accents like smooth black pebbles bordering a bathroom edge and a lot of woven textures too. The walls were also typically anchored with large-scale nature photography, almost always depicting a lotus flower or a bright green forest of bamboo stalks. Retail spaces and hotel lobbies frequently incorporated indoor water features and strategically placed stylized Buddha sculptures, all framed by minimalist symmetry and dramatic accent lighting designed to partition spaces into quiet zones. And who can forget these tall ceramic vases filled with branches? Yeah. I feel like the whole concept was very commercialized, and retailers wanted you to believe that by buying a £40 candle, you were somehow having a spiritual experience. That being said, I do think it kind of became a cultural default, so much so it took over every interior space in sight. Which is understandable, quite frankly, because the rest of the early 2000s were quite chaotic. You had giant entertainment units, Tuscan kitchens, inflatable furniture and lava lamps, McMansions, bright plastics, and the general sensory overload of peak consumer culture. So when this softer, quieter aesthetic appeared, people were immediately drawn to it. As a side note, if you're enjoying the video so far, please leave a like and hype the video. I really appreciate that. And if you want to connect and support us even further, think about joining our membership. As I've already mentioned, I think it was a celebrity craze with Eastern wellness that really pushed the momentum of the movement in the West. Suddenly, every magazine interview involved celebrities talking about chakras and sun salutations like they had personally reached enlightenment after one retreat in Goa. However, to be clear, this style started in Asia, and developers and designers in the West imported a heavily commercialized version of traditional design, to the point I think that the spiritual practices went completely out the window. So what is real Zen design? Well, Zen as a concept actually comes from Buddhism. The roots begin with dhyana in India, a Sanskrit word referring to meditation and deep states of awareness within Hindu and Buddhist traditions. As Buddhism spread to China, dhyana evolved into Chan, a Chinese Buddhist school that emphasized direct experience, mindfulness, simplicity, and meditation. Then centuries later, Chan Buddhism spread to Japan, where it became what we know as Zen today. So when people talk about Zen aesthetics today, they're often unknowingly referencing a huge chain of cultural exchanges across the whole of Asia. And that's what made the aesthetic feel so different, because much of the visual language came directly from East Asia, especially Japanese design, but there were also influences from China, India, Korea, and Bali specifically. That's also why the 2000s version was a strange cultural blend, because Western interiors were pulling visual ideas from multiple Asian cultures. And personally, I think that was also influenced by the rise in global luxury travel at the time too. Wealthy Western tourists were increasingly going on holiday to places like Bali, Tokyo, Thailand, and Singapore, then returning home wanting their houses to look like boutique hotels and spa resorts. So it all kind of became this amalgamation of Eastern design influences, but how was each country represented? Japanese design philosophies contributed to the minimalism, low furniture, natural materials, negative space, shoji screens, stone gardens, and the whole idea of calm through simplicity. Grounded in feng shui and strict symmetry, Chinese style prioritizes the harmonious flow of energy, or qi, through outer space. It was visually defined by low-profile lacquered furniture, intricate wooden latticework, and the use of bamboo, and bold symbolic accent colours like deep red and jade. But obviously feng shui is more about the placement of the furniture and the flow of qi, as opposed to the look of the furniture. But I talk about feng shui in lots of other videos, so I'm not going to get into it right now. But you get the idea. The Indonesian influences came from seamless indoor-outdoor living, designed to embrace the tropical landscape. Tropical plants also derived from this particular look, I believe. It relies entirely on raw organic materials like hand-carved teak wood and mahogany, woven rattan and volcanic stone. Korean principles were guided by the minimalism of Beisanimsu, where spaces are designed to harmonize beautifully with the surrounding natural topography, meaning that the ideal house is built with a mountain in the back and a river in the front, although hanok shapes differ between region. It embraces nature, natural hanji paper textures, and a profound respect for open, empty floor space. The Zen aesthetic also drew from Indian design, by utilizing deep verandas and central courtyards to encourage communal gathering. The style also inhaled intricately hand-carved rosewood, teak, and mangowood furniture, vibrant woven textiles, and ornamental jali screens that filter harsh sunlight into soft decorative shadows. I think there was really the most ornamentation with the Indian influences. Silence and stillness are also innately part of Zen design, which is a huge contrast to contemporary Western minimalism, which often became cold and hyper-controlled, leading to the plain white boxes we have today. I think that traditional Zen-inspired spaces tend to feel warm precisely because they embrace irregularity and a rich atmosphere. Japanese writer Junichiro Tanizaki wrote about this in his 1933 essay, Praise of Shadows, where he argued that Western modernity became oppressed with brightness, gloss, and polished surfaces, while traditional Japanese interiors valued dimness, shadow, patina, and subtlety. And I think that's something that completely summarizes the difference between westernized Zen and actual Zen interiors. To me, a Zen home is about making a space calming, creating a space that truly gives you solace, but also making sure that it doesn't become too minimalistic. I truly believe that you need art and interesting shapes and colours to uplift you and bring you joy, but also maybe art that makes you reflect, so that it has a kind of meditative quality about it. And also embodying the natural world through textures, materials, and filling your space with plants or highlighting the outdoors. And importantly, drawing on some kind of spiritual aspects, whether that's religion or something like feng shui. It's really up to you personally. So how do we take the original intention of the 2000s Zen aesthetic and turn it into something actually authentic? How do we create a space that actually heals your soul, rather than just looking like a waiting area at a spa? First, we need to talk about texture, because one of the biggest crimes of the 2000s look was that everything looked flat and sterile. A lot of the time, the surfaces were very shiny and reflective. From a deeper perspective, true Zen design uses varied tactile textures to ground you, acting as a sensory anchor that forces you to connect with the physical world. If you look at my living room design here, I've used that exact philosophy by focusing on rich tactile layering to bring depth into the space. Firstly, by including teak paneling on the ceiling and warm wooden flooring. On the back wall, instead of plain paint, I've introduced a gongbi style silk wallpaper to add another layer of texture. To balance out that delicate artistry, I've anchored the room with heavy tactile stonework to the left. Now, traditionally, a lot of Balinese design uses very dark, dramatic, volcanic rock, but to keep the room feeling airy and cohesive with our soothing colour palettes, I've opted for a much lighter, cream-toned stone. Whilst we're on the topic of colour, we also need to move completely away from the highly saturated, muddy tones of the 2000s. In the living room design, I've leaned heavily into the colour palette of traditional Japanese interiors, wrapping the space in soft, warm neutrals like cream, sand, and pale, unlacquered wood tones. In a Japanese traditional home like a minka, the essence of an empty, neutral-walled room creates a backdrop for whatever you want the focus to be. This could be fresh flowers or a piece of pottery, whatever brings you joy. And to be honest, bright, chaotic colours are constantly looking for your attention, so I think it's better to stick with warm, soothing tones. Thirdly, to bring our entire room into harmony, we need to look at our decorative elements through the lens of ancient feng shui. Instead of just buying random trinkets, I've structured the decor elements in this living room around the 5 earth-based elements: wood, fire, earth, metal, water, balancing them through specific materials, shapes, and colours so the energy in the room feels completely aligned. I talk about this in depth in this video in case you want to know a bit more. You can see this grounded beautifully in the raw, natural textures layered throughout the space, like solid wood and clay. But in my opinion, the absolute crown jewel in this balancing act are these traditional Indian architectural elements. Specifically, these gorgeous, intricately carved jalis or lattice screens. In the 2000s, we just blocked out the sun with cheap plastic blinds, but a jali screen is a much more natural approach. Now let's also talk about spatial flow, because how you move through a space is also what makes it Zen. While modern design loves an open floor plan, traditional feng shui actually prefers a separate kitchen to dining area, just so that you're keeping those energies very distinct. So I've installed Japanese shoji sliding doors that will close off the chaotic noise and mess of cooking when it's time to eat on the right-hand side. From there, the entire room flows effortlessly towards the back of the house, where I've orientated some of the seating to face the garden, so ideally in most of the seating, you'll be able to see the luscious garden out the back. This is a deliberate nod to the Korean principle of Beisanimsu, which focuses on harmonizing a home with its surrounding landscape. The fifth way to design a home with soul is to inject personal elements that bring genuine joy. The fatal flaw of the original 2000s Zen style was that it felt sterile and hotel lobbies were just placing decor for the sake of it. Your home needs to be an extension of your energy, which means displaying pieces that resonate with your personal journey. In my design here, I've broken up the minimalism by incorporating soulful, curated artwork on the walls, specifically combining beautiful paintings with this stunning, hand-carved Indonesian wooden panel. And of course, we can't talk about a soul-healing Zen space without talking about living greenery. The 2000s era was obsessed with artificial orchids and bamboo around the house, and of course these twigs in a vase, but real Zen requires living, breathing energy of real nature. For this living room, I drew massive inspiration from traditional Indian architecture, which celebrates nature through courtyards or angan and expansive verandas. I've intentionally clustered them near the window to extend that indoor-outdoor flow. Bringing these plants, I think, doesn't just look beautiful, but spiritually, it literally purifies the air and infuses the room with prana. But what do you think about the 2000s aesthetic and Zen design in general? Let me know down below. Please leave a like and hype the video if you enjoyed it. I really appreciate that, and it really does help to grow the channel. And if you need help fulfilling your own design dreams, I've left our website in the description. If you want to keep the design inspiration flowing though, I've left a video on the next part that I think you'll enjoy. But that's it for today's video. Bye guys!